Okay, well, it is 5, so we can get this kicked off. If I could just have everyone who's not a panelist mute their mics just so we don't have too much noise coming in and out, that'd be great. I just want to introduce myself and my coworker, Hannah Pettyjohn. We are the 2 youth coordinators for the AYA. We just started this year, and so we've been trying to bring some fresh and new activities, but we're also doing some more of the more traditional stuff. And so this is our first event of the year. So thank you for coming. And thank you to the trainers for taking the time to be here tonight. Unfortunately, Clint actually wasn't able to get on tonight. He was traveling, and originally his plans had lined up perfectly to hop on the Zoom as soon as he landed. But he ran into some thunderstorms and his flight got delayed, and it turned into a whole day event for him. So unfortunately, he's actually still in the air right now. And so he won't be able to come on tonight, but he does send his hello and good wishes. So hopefully we'll see him for another event sometime.
We'll make him do double duty next time.
So with that in mind, welcome everybody. And I just want to go through briefly how this is going to work, and then I'll kind of turn it over to the trainers, let you guys introduce yourselves for a minute or two. But for now, so tonight I'm going to be the moderator, and generally we're going to, at least for the first half, stick to about a minute for each panelist to answer each question that I ask. We'll start with 6 questions, and these are prepared. The panelists have seen them. And then we'll spend about a 30-minute to 35-minute time period on that. And then for the second half of the hour, we'll go into an open mic session where anyone in the audience can ask the panelists a question. And in order to ask a question, we just ask that you use your little raise hand button on the Zoom. And then Hannah is going to be watching the screen to see who is raising their hands. And then she will call out your name, say, Hannah, you can ask your question now. Or if you don't notice us calling on you and you have raised your hand, or maybe you can't figure out the raise hand button, or your camera isn't letting you for some reason, feel free to type your question into the chat. Hannah's also going to be monitoring the chat. And so if you can't get your question in, feel free to put it there and we will get to it that way as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and turn it over to the panelists. So I want to introduce Sandy Jirkovsky, Darren Vincent, Katie Sikes, and Mackenzie Fallis. So they have all joined us tonight to give us their time and advice on horse show prep. So all your questions should be horse show oriented. And I'll let each of you go ahead and introduce yourselves for about a minute, and I'll just call on each of you as we go along. And I will have a timer going just to keep us generally on time, but I'm not going to be a stickler and say at a minute you're cut off.
Not the Oscars, but just the music's going to come on.
But just to keep us generally on time, if I have to interject, I will, but I'll be gentle. So anyway, Sandy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Sandy Jirkovsky, and I just want to thank you all for putting this together. I think it's a good step in the right direction for our AYA. I think it's the very first attempt that anything like this has happened. So kudos to all of you for putting this together. This is the wave of the future. So I am currently APHA Director of Judges and Professional Horsemen. I teach all over the United States and Europe doing Horse IQ Live seminars, and I've been showing for longer than most of you have ever been alive. My husband is a horse trainer and excels in the ranch and roping events. When I was showing, I did the all-around events, a lot of pleasure, hunt seat, Western ride and trail, hunter in hand, etc. So I've trained a lot of kids over the years, a lot of youth kids, had a lot of world and national champions in the youth and amateur, and was blessed to have Mackenzie Fallis work for me for about 6 years. So I'm glad to see her face on today. So thank you again for having us on here. I think this is a great idea for the AYA.
Thank you. How about you, Darren?
Oh, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to voice my thoughts out into the AYA, and hope if any of them can get anything out of this, it's just a wonderful experience for them to be able to talk to us. If they do have any other questions after this, they can definitely feel free to email me or Facebook. I don't do a lot of Facebook messaging, but I do find it once in a while. So I'm Darren Vincent. I'm in Southern California. We here at the ranch, we currently keep about 26 horses in training. We specialize in youth and non-pro and the all-around events. Getting them to do the disciplines that they really like to do, and then challenging them to do something that they're not so familiar with. And we definitely look for prospects that can go in there and do the performance classes, mainly your pattern work and whatnot, and really challenge the riders to dissect the patterns and properly ride them and have fun, which is probably the hardest thing to do while you're showing horses, just to remember that you are out there to have fun. So I live on the property, so my job is 24/7. If any of you guys are planning on being a horse trainer, it is a never-ending job, but we do it for the love and for the clients and the horses.
All right, thanks, Darren. Mackenzie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Mackenzie Fallis, and I live in Gainesville, Texas. I just became an APHA professional horseman. Like Sandy said, I worked for them for 6 years, so I learned a lot, and I started my own business about 3 years ago, 2021. So I like the all around. I really like starting 2-year-olds and developing the young horse into a show horse. So.
All right, thanks, Mackenzie. And Katie, go ahead.
Hi there. I'm Katie Sikes. I live in the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Seattle. I am the owner of Deerfield Farm Equestrian LLC, and was lucky enough to train under a really outstanding horsewoman named Sue Schultz, who I'm sure many of the adults have had a lot of experience knowing her. Yeah, she's a great horsewoman, and she had a great vision for what horses can do for people. And I was really just fortunate that she taught me everything that I know now about horse training. We specialize in, probably my favorite class is the horsemanship. I love coaching the horsemanship. I love getting the horses ready for the horsemanship. And I love creating partnership with horses and humans, and both youth and adult amateurs. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Well, we can get started out with some questions, but before that, I know a lot of people have just come in, so I just want to remind everyone to, at the second half of this panel, we're going to open up the questions to the audience, so you can actually ask a question to the panel. If you want to ask a question, feel free to click the raise hand button, and that'll show that you have a little raised hand on your screen. And Hannah, who's the other coordinator for the AYA, is going to be searching for raised hands, and then she will call on you. So whatever your name is on the screen, she'll call out, and then you can feel free to either unmute yourself and turn on your camera and say your question, or type the question into the chat. Also, if we miss your hand raised button, you can feel free to type your question into the chat at any time. So with that being said, why don't we get some questions started? And I will just call on each trainer as we go and give you guys each a portion of time to answer the question. Again, these are questions that the trainers have already seen before. So we'll start out with one about show nerves. So how do you suggest exhibitors handle their nerves? We'll go ahead and start out with Sandy.
Okay, well, I'll start with that, because perfect preparation is the best way to handle nerves. Anytime you're prepared, those nerves are going to go away. Chris Dawson is my son. He's a $2 million rider for the working cow horse. He likes to make sure he can wiggle his toes before he goes works a cow. So just make sure your body parts are working, that your focus is there, your mental preparation is there. And if you're prepared, that will calm the nerves. Everybody still gets nervous. That's just part of showing. That means that you care. But having it under control with breathing, controlling your body parts, and just knowing that you're prepared to go out there and do a winning run.
Okay, Darren, how about you?
I agree with the part of being prepared that Sandy related to, is confidence that you've trained the rider to know what they're going to go out there and perform, that they're not going into unknown waters. They have gone over these drills several times. They're comfortable with it. And then what I tell them, one of the last things when they go into the arena and they look at the big arena and the flags and the judges sitting in the stands and the videographer, I tell them to forget about that. When they walk in the pen, they are to look at the arena as if they are looking at my arena at home, that they are visualizing the pens in the back, the horses over on this side. So it kind of helps them to relax, that they're not into an unfamiliar arena, that it gives them a little bit of comfort of home. But again, if they are prepared and know exactly what's going to be asked from them, I don't have a lot of problems with nerves with the riders, so long as I have done my job to let them know where the strengths are going to be in that pattern, where the weaknesses might be. But you still need to go out there and perform, and let it be between you and the horse, not between you and the judges.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Yeah, I agree with what they've all said. Being prepared, knowing that when you've gone into the pen, you've done your homework, you've taken the time with your horse in the show arena, they're not scared. And breathing's important. I think a lot of people I know coaching, especially in the patterns, I'll ask them, are you breathing? And a lot of the times they're not. So take a deep breath, and there's going to be another horse show. I promise you. So do the best you can. Know you've done your homework. Take a deep breath, smile, and show your horse.
Trust your training and trust your riding. That's a big thing. Trust what you've been working on.
For sure.
This isn't the place to go in and try to fix things. It is the place to go in and do what you've been practicing. Yeah. So that's the big thing. Don't try to change things the night before. Don't oversleep. Get there plenty early. If you're there plenty early, you're going to have time. You won't be rushed. Nothing makes you more nervous than not being on time. Mm-hmm. So that's a big, big part of it. Just be on time. That gives you time to think through your pattern, visualize your pattern. A lot of thought process through all this. The book, The Mind Gym, is a great book to read about preparation. It will definitely calm those nerves and help you get on the winning track.
All right. And Katie, what do you have to add to this?
Yeah, all really great insight from great horsewomen. So A+ everybody. You know, for the new riders, I would say just know you're going to be nervous, and that's okay. I think it's an important part of the process. You know, I always tell my new students, like, our first goal is just survival. Let's go to the horse show and let's come home from the horse show. Let's have all of our limbs intact. Let's have our horse intact. And that's a win, right? We've got to learn, you know, Sandy's talking about being prepared and showing up early. Those are all really important life lessons that the horse show has to offer. And you might fail at them the first couple times, and that's okay, but, you know, take the lesson, move on. And then the other word that comes to mind is just practice, right? I think all of us as human beings, we kind of resist that feeling of nervousness, but if we can learn to manage it in any setting, then the horse show will get easier. You know, have the challenging conversation with the teacher, have the challenging conversation with your friend, put yourself outside your comfort zone in smaller areas, and theoretically, the skills translate well to the horse show as well.
All right, thanks, Katie. Well, we'll go to the next question, and this time I'll start with you, Katie. So let's move on to a showmanship or sportsmanship type question. So what is good sportsmanship, and why does it matter? Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I know you said to keep this in like a horse show context, but I think sportsmanship is just a good human quality to make Earth have more peace on it. And I think we all turn on our TVs and watch the news and see that that's obviously a goal that, you know, if we're not working toward it, there's no hope, candidly, right? So what is good sportsmanship? One of, I think, the best things that I have learned in my own life is that there's only one person you're going to go to sleep with every night, and that's you. And so at the end of the day, the way you behave needs to be okay with you as an individual and a human being. The way you treat your horse, the way you care for him at the end of the day, the way you walk out of that show pen and give him a pat on his neck, or do you walk out and, you know, have a meltdown because things didn't go your way? There's other competitors there. You have no idea who is going through what in their life. Show up as a good human being for them, right? If somebody does a good job, tell them good job. Let's create a community. I think we're all capable of doing better in this area. I know I am, and I have to constantly coach myself as an adult trainer to do a better job being a good sport. And I think it could be a place where the Appaloosa Horse Club can step it up and make a great example of what the horse show world could look like for everybody. So that's my piece.
Thanks, Katie. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
I agree with her for sure, 110%. Sportsmanship is huge, especially in the youth. Y'all are there to have fun. Smile. A smile will go a long ways. I don't care what you're doing, where you're at, just smile. We're here to have fun. There's going to be another horse show. A small word of encouragement to your fellow competitors, exhibitors goes a long ways. Just sportsmanship always boils down to the golden rule for me: treat others the way you would want to be treated. So smile to your competitors, smile at your horse, be nice to your parents and your grandparents, that somebody is funding this trip to the horse show. So take the time to thank them.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Darren?
Well, I agree with everything that they've said. Obviously, it comes down to being a human being first. And then we're out there showing an animal that animal can change our emotions very quickly, depending on the kind of ride we're getting from them at that moment. So you need to be able to deal with that. Like Mackenzie said, there's always going to be another horse show. I know the kids at this point think that's not going to happen. There will always be another horse show. But how you show yourself at that show you are at right now will continue on. So you need to make sure that you handle it with grace. You go in the pen, you come out the pen the same way. Those judges are watching your attitude. Other people are also, and it really transfers over to everything that you're going to do in life. You are going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. And so horse showing is just a preparation for the remainder of your life choices that you're going to be making and the people that you're going to meet in them. So I tell them, you treat others the way that you want to be treated, obviously, and especially an animal, because there is no rhyme and reason to go outside of a pen and get upset. Also, you treat your other competitors as if they are your best friends, because they are. This community is very small, and every kid out there is there for the love of the horse and the love of the sport. So we all need to really reach out to everyone. And there's a good example this past weekend when we were at a show, and one of our horses needed a different equipment, and we almost had 6 people right there in the holding pen offering that. And that is such a great, it just makes your heart warm that our community is offering to help. At the World Show, I am based in an area where my stalls are very accessible to anything somebody wants, whether it be scissors or bands or coffee or whatever. My barn is an open barn to come in and get something from. That's just the way we do it. And I know it would be a reverse role if I needed something. So the kids have to remember there's always going to be another horse show. You go into that pen and you come out of the pen. If you need to have a meltdown, go do it in your car and cry or whatever, but do not take it out in the pen or around other exhibitors.
Thanks, Darren. Go ahead, Sandy.
Those are all great points, and you are exactly right. Well, I've seen too many kids come out of the arena and go to jerking on their horse, and it wasn't their horse's fault at all. And that does stick in my mind the next time I'm judging. We had one youth girl come out and say, "You need to teach this horse his diagonals." We all know that's not part of the horse's responsibility. We do have like a little 30-second or 30-minute rule. I like to keep my parents away from the kids when they haven't done a good job, like in the first 15 minutes. The last thing any kid that's had a problem needs to know is that they had a bad job. That parent needs to come in. So I discuss it with the parents as much as the kids. Those parents need to be encouraging. A lot of them don't show themselves. They don't know that this horse is not a machine. You just don't turn the steering wheel and it goes. So I really want those parents to realize that, because even the ride back to the motel can be so hard on a child that that's not good. That parent needs to realize how hard this sport really is. I want that child, though, to take responsibility for their actions. I think in today's world, we've lost so much of people taking responsibility and accountability. I just want to blame it off on anybody. So I don't make up excuses. If you don't win, just say, you know what? I did miss that lead. I need to work on that. That was a weak spot. You know what? We did step out of that pivot. We'll go work on that and make it better for the next show. Like we said, we're not trying to cure cancer here. It's a horse show. So you need to learn from those mistakes and get back in the game. Go watch your video, but just don't watch your video. Watch the people that beat you also and learn from them. That is a great thing. Get that score sheet out. Look at those score sheets. Go and compare. What did they do better than I? Pretty soon, if you have an open mind, not just barn blind, you'll see, oh yeah, she stood up when she ran. She didn't run like a duck in the showmanship. That might be one of my issues. And then if one of your barn mate makes a mistake, don't point it out to them. We all know when we make mistakes, you know, just be encouraging and say, you know what, you have another class going, put that one behind you and go ride that next class. If you keep focusing on the negative is going to follow you all the way through your life. And that's whether you're on the job or whether you're in the show pen or doing a college interview. And the big thing is show respect for your horse, show respect for your trainer, your team, the judges, the gate people. I've seen people be so rude to those gate people. I just want to walk up there and take their horse away from them. Those gate people work long hours, y'all. They are sitting there in the heat and waiting for you. And someone will be, oh, I'm just dragging my little butt up there to get up there. Be on time. That's all part of the being a good sport. We have sponsored the Sportsmanship Award for ages. And it's not the person that comes out and is just smiling after the win, but it's the person who's offering help to other exhibitors, a person that's making sure everybody's just kind of there having a good time besides showing horses. And the rudeness factor doesn't play into the horse show event. Thank your parents, thank your trainers, you know, thank the people running the show. I always said you can tell a lot by how people's character is, by how they treat people that can't do anything for them at all.
Thanks, Sandy. All right, let's go to the next question. So, what is the best way to prepare yourself for a show? Darren, we'll go with you first.
Everybody's gonna probably think this, the youth kids that are listening, would be preparing yourself as far as riding the horse. I'm gonna delve into a little bit of preparing yourself. You need to make sure that your hat is shaped, your boots are shined, your tack is clean. You have taken time to get the clothes properly fitted and everything is packed correctly. Organization. That is one of the most important things when you're preparing yourself for a show, is organization and being prepared. Don't let your mom assume when you get to the show that that was packed. It's your job to make sure that your items are in there. Your makeup matches, your pads match, your outfits. All of that is a process as much as getting the horse ready for that pen. So not only do you need to make sure that your trainer is allowing you enough riding time, education time. We spend a lot of time here when the kids come prior, staying here, is getting to know your trainer, getting to know what thought process. You guys need to be on the same length, listening and understanding them. And then preparing yourself is being on time, having your horse prepared. So when I say riding at 8, we're in the pen riding at 8. You're not getting there at 8. So a lot of preparing for the show itself is the time prior, not just riding your horse.
All right, Katie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything Darren just said was awesome. But I think preparedness mentally, physically, and then of course, really being clear about what are my expectations and my goals at this horse show, and are they appropriate is a really important question. You know, I think at the beginning of show careers, I see a lot, you know, everybody wants to do everything, but it's not always suitable, right? Maybe the horse is a green horse and he's not prepared to do all of the things, or maybe the handler doesn't have the time and commitment to put in to master 4 or 5 classes. Maybe 1 class is enough. Yeah, so so be clear about your goals, you know, open line of communication with your trainer, and then also be really willing to hear, you know, if my goal is to win the horsemanship, your trainer might say, hey, that's not an appropriate goal. Let's look at this again. Maybe let's try to get zeros in our horsemanship pattern. And then be okay with that, because it is a process to get to the front of the lineup. And you know, sometimes it's not with this horse, and sometimes it's not in this I'm gonna say lifetime, but that sounds very it sounds so daunting. It's not the word I want to use, but you know, it might not be an appropriate goal for where you're at right now. It doesn't mean it never is. But each horse has a unique need from us as human beings. And if your horse has a need that doesn't line up with your goals, the good thing to do as a person and a human being on this planet is to have the goal match what the horse needs, as well as the rider. So
Thanks, Katie. Sandy, how about you?
Well, there's a lot. First, I'm a big believer in visualization. So I want you to go in there and visualize that pattern, but I also want you to have a plan A and plan B in case plan A doesn't work. You're thinking you're going to do a lead change, but it's not feeling right. Plan B would be a simple change. Okay, you're thinking you're going to really speed through this turn, but your horse is not feeling that in that showmanship. Plan B would be to slow it down and think about that. So on my visualization, I like to have plan A, plan B, sometimes plan C. Ride what you have that day. Don't try to change that ride. But you also have to be physically ready yourself. You have to get sleep. You have to have food. You can't be arguing with people, arguing with your parents over something. Everything has to be focused on what you are going to do in that class. Don't be worrying about a class 2 classes away or worrying about the high point. Ride that class for that day. I think you need to eat some high carb food to kind of keep your energy up. I think you have to really sit down and think through that pattern. I like to get them in the arena and find spots in that arena where they're going to try to make their first stop and have little landmarks. I think a big thing that amateurs and the youth think, and it's because we're taught to write your name 100 times when you're in school, is to go practice that pattern 100 times. Well, horses are just the opposite. That's like the worst thing you can do is go practice that pattern 100 times. You have to go practice bits and pieces of that pattern. But that's just a different mentality that you have to get. Your trainer may say, "No, I want you to go out there and don't do any lead changes." We look up there and you're doing 5,000 lead changes because you're insecure about your lead changes. Okay, but that's just, you have to think like a horse, and that's all part of preparing to go be successful in the show pen.
Thanks, Sandy. How about you, Mackenzie?
It's hard to follow, but I agree with all three of them 110%. Clean tack, have your outfits planned. Don't be waiting till the last minute or the night before the horse show to pack your stuff. Have it in the trailer, ready to go. And nowadays, patterns are released so far in advance. You have access to those patterns weeks before you go to the horse show. It's your job not to abuse them. Like Sandy said, you do not need to go and practice that pattern 100 times because your horse is smart. and then he or she is going to beat you to it every time. You need to focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths. Put a cone out there, practice standing at the cone. I think we take this little, small, simple things for granted, practicing walking, practicing stopping at the cone and waiting. When you tell your horse, whoa, wait there for 10 seconds before you do something else, especially in the trail. That day, you can only show what you have. So you have to be prepared for the worst. Like Sandy said, your horse is only going to be capable of so much that day and that time. So show what you have, be comfortable with your horse, and yeah, go from there. Just be prepared.
Thanks, Mackenzie. All right, Mackenzie, I'll give you this next question first.
Okay.
So this one is seemingly simple, but I'm sure has a lot of depth to it. So why do we show horses?
Oof. Why do we show horses? For the love of the horse has always been it for me. I did not come from a background of horses at all. My parents didn't do it, grandparents. I just was very attracted to horses. So it's definitely the love of the animal for sure, as well as then you throw in some competition aspect. But for a person to take a 1,200-pound animal and get it to do what they want it to do within reason and sync up with that and have that connection, that to me is why I show horses. We show horses.
Thank you. How about you, Katie?
Yeah. Oh, was that Sandy or
No, go ahead, Katie. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I definitely agree. Obviously, like there's a reason that we're all attracted to this. I think it's one of the most easily forgotten things when you're in a show setting is that we really do love horses. And that's why, you know, any of the people on this call ask their parents, hey, can I have a horseback riding lesson, right? I want to go learn to ride a horse. I also see the value of showing, I mean, for youth riders particularly, there are so many life skills that are available to young people if they are willing to learn the lessons that come along. And it's so important for parents to know that failure is such a big part of the game. And as horse trainers, you know, we've seen a lot of failure and upset, you know, riders that probably should have done well, you know, blow a pattern and have a bad class. And it is part of the game, and it's such a great metaphor and lesson to have at a young age, because I think, you know, people are growing up thinking that they should just be good at everything right away because that's what it looks like on Instagram, right? And it's a very unrealistic life expectation, and it's particularly unrealistic in the horse industry. And the other thing that's great about a show setting is it creates pressure. And, you know, I'm kind of a big philosophy person. I'm really into, you know, coaching and all of these different philosophical aspects of what it means to be a coach. And, you know, a theme that you see over and over again is that pressure creates results. And it really can, right? If you don't have the pressure to do a canter strike off exactly at cone B, you might never learn how, right? So the great thing about the horse show is it becomes a test for the equestrian and the horse together. And it can be a really fun, exciting test, or like a really miserable one, depending on your interpretation and how you show up to it. So
Thanks, Katie. Sandy, go ahead.
Hey, I think the love of the horse and the connection with the horse is probably the main reason that all of us get involved. It's hard to be a motorcycle racer and have a real connection with that motorcycle, because that motorcycle doesn't give you any feedback. That horse gives you feedback. It's a connection that you can be having the worst day and you can go out there. They used to find me when I was little asleep on my horse, sitting backwards, draped over his butt, because there was no brothers there. There was no mom telling me what I had to do. I was in the stall with my horse, and he was my best buddy, and that's the way I grew up. So I was very fortunate that way. But besides that, the friends and the relationships in the horse business are amazing. I feel like I have family all over the United States. The people that I showed youth with many, many, many years ago, I can still call them and we'll just pick up like it was yesterday. And that bond that you make with these people, you think, oh, I see them a few times here at the shows. No, that horse show family is really family. I mean, that is really, we love the horse, but we love the people. And that's a big thing that we have to sell, that connection, to get more people involved. The other thing, the NCEA, the scholarships they're giving these youth girls now on reining and horsemanship, you can get your college paid for if you apply yourself. I mean, you've got some goals here. You can, I have lots of friends that, and past youth kids that have had full ride scholarship just because they were successful doing something they loved. So that's another big reward at the end. It's going to give you skills on what to do when things don't go right. It's going to give you skills on organizing yourself. It's going to give you so many job skills and school skills that showing horses is just, the horse show part of it is just the tip of the iceberg. The icing on the cake comes from everything that stems from that.
Thanks, Sandy. Go ahead, Darren.
Well, I think what everybody has said, commented on, is very truthful and correct. And I want to kind of make a note to the animal itself, and the connection with the rider is why we show horses. We're showing with an animal, and eventually that animal becomes that youth rider's best friend. you will find them in the stalls, like Sandy said, sitting on them. They will talk to them. It becomes such a connection between the two of loyalty, and that the horse is looking for that youth rider for the feel to help them through patterns or whatever it takes in their process of getting to the horse show and at the horse show. When the horse gets nervous, the rider has to take control. So I think a lot of it teaches that the rider has to work with an animal that is in 100% looking for guidance from them, and getting that trust and loyalty, and the rider to have feel on that animal at that day, whether it's going good or bad. And that I agree with Sandy wholeheartedly on the horse show traveling friendship between these youth riders. It's a family orientated, athletic business that we're in, and you're selling not only fun for the horse and the rider, but you're building friendships, you're building a bond, and there's nothing that can take that away from a rider with that horse.
Thanks, Darren. All right, so we're about halfway through the call, so I don't want to dominate this too much with prepared questions. So I'm going to open up the Zoom call now to the audience. So once again, for those of you who are new to the Zoom, if you missed it earlier, if you have a question, feel free to click the raise hand button. And then Hannah, our other coordinator for the AYA, is going to look around and will call out your name as you have it written on the screen, and allow you to either turn on your mic and state your question to the panel, or if you want to type it into the chat, we can also do it that way. And I do have plenty more questions, so if we're shy, I'll keep going, but I'll stop for now. Go ahead and raise those hands.
Yeah, I see Nettie Olson has one.
I don't really have a question per se, but I would like to make a comment. I really appreciate everything that you're doing and putting this panel together. I think it is extremely important, and it is extremely valuable. I'm 58 years old, and I started showing Appaloosas when I was about 8 years old. My daughter grew up showing Appaloosas, and although I now show some other breeds, my heart is with the Appaloosas, and my grandchildren are now showing. And to me, there is no better place for them to get the fundamentals and the foundation and the friendship and why we show horses and the community that we represent. None of the other breeds compare to the Appaloosas, and for that reason, my grandchildren are getting their foundation and their basics where I got it, where my daughter got it. And it is, what you guys are doing is valuable, and it is very much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Nettie. We can go ahead and go over to Kim, but we appreciate it.
Oh, we have a much shorter question than Nettie had. Our question was, how do you pick the patterns when you're judging for the show? How do you prepare what to put up there, and how do you make those choices as a judge?
I'll start that as a judge. I will ask my show management what the level of competition is in that area. You know, are we dealing with world type kids? Are we dealing with first timers? Is this their first show of the year? I want to keep that pattern where it can be judged on the rider's ability to make a connection with that horse. I don't want to have a pattern that's so difficult or so trappy that if it's their first show of the year or novice classes, I want to make sure that that pattern is fit for that exhibitor. As a judge, if you give them a pattern that's too much, it makes your job judging very hard, and it makes everybody not have a real good experience. So as judges, I think we really have to take the time to set those patterns large enough that they can be done correctly without any traps, and that they can be user friendly. So.
Okay, I'm not sure who is actually a judge here in our panelists, but Darren, do you have any comments?
I agree with Sandy. Is first of all, it's the level of the show. Obviously, your world and national shows, you expect harder elements, more difficulty in the patterns per se. But if you're going to a weekend show, definitely you're looking at a lesser of a pattern, less maneuvers, and something that gives somebody a chance to get through the pattern. Like she said, stretch the pattern out, give them time to get from point A to B. Don't make them so tight and difficult where it's impossible and you lose the rider to where they were just disgusted because they couldn't get through the pattern. Make them have it where they come out of there knowing that they did achieve something and get through a pattern. So I don't think it's so much that the judges pick a lot of the patterns. We get our patterns through show management to check for any changes that we might need to make. And I appreciate when they send them and they are at the level that the show is needing those for those riders at that time.
Thanks, Darren. Mackenzie, do you have any comments?
Nope.
Okay. Katie, how about you? It's okay.
Good answer.
Yeah, I am also not a judge. I will say one trick is to just try to do things, master skills at a higher level than you need at the horse show. So, yeah, like if you can set your pattern really small and get it done at home, then you'll roll into the horse show and feel pretty confident. But I don't select the patterns. I just show up and do what the judges tell me to.
One thing that we ask our judges to do is to make them age appropriate. The walk trot pattern needs to be less. The 50 and over, they don't need to run until their depends are full. So we do try to make them age and category appropriate. We don't like to have to change the cone setup for every class. That helps speed your show along if we set up patterns that everything can be used off that same cone placement. We're seeing more patterns with fewer cones, like a lot of one cone patterns, just where you start, and we love those. We're trying to encourage them to put less backup in the showmanship because that's so hard on the horse's hocks. So we're trying to get judges to think about the welfare of the horse also when they're setting up all these patterns.
That's awesome to hear, Sandy.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions out there?
We have one from Sam.
All right, go ahead, Sam.
What's the most validating part of being a trainer?
Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good
Validating
one.
part. I don't know if I've ever felt like I validated. I feel really grateful to be able to work with these animals. There's nothing better than waking up and walking into the barn and seeing, I call my horses my students, all excited that you're coming to work with them and teach them something that day. Horses are very willing students, so long as you give it black and white, and you do it over and over and over. The validating part for me is that I get to go to horse shows. I get to coach really good kids, and I see the improvement, not just only in their riding, but in their humanity that horses teach these youth. There's nothing greater than to see these kids go on and to have value in their lives when they hit the adult world. So validating, I can't say it's all for me. It's for the love of my students that are sitting in the barn, and it's the riders that I get to teach them what to do with these great animals.
Thanks, Darren. How about you, Mackenzie?
I think the most validating thing for me, every year we get yearlings that come in from the pasture that haven't been handled. They don't know how to tie. And I get to turn them into a show horse. It's a very cool process to be a part of, and I look forward to it every year, seeing those younger horses progress. And the same thing when you match up a horse and a rider and watching that connection. Seeing them change every day, that's the thing for me. And then being able to be competitive and be lucky or blessed enough to win, that's the icing on the cake. So to see the whole process and all the hard work, blood, sweat, tears pay off. So I think that's the most validating part of being a horse trainer for me.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I mean, we all started this because we loved a horse, right? So, yeah, when you build a relationship with a horse, it's like any other relationship. They learn to trust you and trust your aids and trust that you're going to ask them to do things in a way that they understand and that they can be successful. And it's, I'm just kind of echoing what Mackenzie said. It's such a process, right? It starts from nothing and can be grown into like a really cool thing. Like I have one at home, I can pull his bridle off and leg yield him and lead change him. And it's just a cool connection to build that with a horse. And he's been in my farm since he was a 2-year-old, and he's like 10 or 11 now. Right. And that it's just a special thing to keep a horse going and to keep them happy in their job, and B, to have that trust and understanding within an animal, right? It makes you feel a little bit like creating peace in the world is actually like an achievable goal, because if you can do it with 1,000-pound prey animal, like what's off the table, right? And the students and the people, right? I've met the most incredible people because of this thing called horses that I love. And I'm lucky enough to be sitting on this call with 4 amazing horsewomen that are in our industry. And the students I'll cry if I talk about it too much, but my students are amazing, and watching them from zero to turn into these elegant, beautiful, really high level horsewomen it's just an incredible gift. So yeah.
Thanks, Katie. Go ahead, Sandy.
I think the key word we heard here from everybody, we never heard the word have to, we heard the word get to. We all get to do this. And that is it gives me shivers. That is so cool. Okay. And to me, it's, seeing those dreams come true, seeing that child grow in their confidence, grow in their personality. You take someone who could hardly look somebody in the eye and they're out there doing showmanship like a queen, that's cool. One of the things we had when we were in Nebraska, a little boy who hadn't spoke. He was 6 years old and never said a word. And he came and we were giving him lead line, walk, trot lessons to start with. And he said the word horse, and his parents started crying. I mean, talk about validating. He never shut up after that horse ride. He was talking full speed ahead. So there's so many more key things than just the horse itself, but that horse adds value to so many of our lives. And I think we're all thankful for it. But I think all of us have to remember, instead of, oh, I have to go to the barn and ride. Remember, you get to go to the barn and ride. That's pretty cool.
Great points by all of you guys. Is there any other questions out there?
Looks like Sophie has one.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. So for in specifics pattern classes, is there specific drills or things that help prepare for longer and more complicated patterns to help get it down and crisp? Is there things that you'd recommend for that?
All right, Sandy, why don't you go ahead with this one?
We like to add a lot of poles to our horses, loping circles. We have like a half circle that has maybe 20 poles in it to give them something else to focus on. We like to do a lot of bending, counter bending, suppleness. If you have the suppleness, a broke horse is going to be able to do any maneuver that we throw out there. But we like to keep it not where they're just loping circles, trotting circles. We like to give them some variety. It's not unusual at our place to see one following the roping dummy and roping the dummy sometimes, just to give them a little bit of difference. But giving them variety, it's as much as you get bored if you think, oh, I'm going to go spend an hour walk, trot, loping in small circles all day. Take them out of that arena and take them out into the field. A broke horse is a broke horse. Probably the best drills that I like, set up cones and do circles around each cone all on a left lead, and then stop and do it all on a right lead. Just getting them that they are really listening to you. I like to take my reins away from my riders and make them, I call it just doing the wild Indian type deal where they're just going off of their body weight and developing that connection with the horse. And it's not long before they understand, if I shift my weight this way, I don't need to be pulling with my reins. So we just do a lot of connecting work like that.
Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Yeah, so I learned a lot at my time with Jim and Sandy. So definitely plays a part. And what I do now, especially with the pleasure horses, they'd be like me. They'd get bored just going in a circle. You need to get, drills are great. Practicing different transitions, extensions, all bridled up, that's great. And that's how you get that crispness. But I think you also need to give your horse a break and pitch him some slack and be able to long trot around and gallop and not have that constant want to pull on him or her, and have that trust of your horse that you can go full speed ahead and here and counter canter and long trot and just let it be a horse for a minute and then go back to work. That to me with the pleasure horses, it's a trust thing and a reward, and then it's easy for them to go slow. But it's more for you to not want to constantly grab on the reins or stop or back up. It gives you that freedom of, if my horse goes a little more faster, it's going to be okay.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree too that practicing extensions to collections without using the reins, using your body. Your body is the communicator on the animal. The reins, their spurs, the bit, everything that we give is a mechanics. You go back to your body and trust that when you sit back and take a deep breath and come back on them a little bit, that they feel a fly on them. They're going to feel you up there. And when you're following and directing with your shoulders, remember, horses are going to follow your shoulders, whether it be in showmanship or horsemanship or hunt seat. Make sure that you're communicating properly with your body, not just going to the reins and making the excuse, the horse did this, the horse did that. Yes, some horses are going to have naughty times and whatnot, but be a stronger rider and be more resilient on the way that you're riding that horse. Some horses need a lot of legs, some don't need a lot of legs, some need to be, a little bit pushed here or there, but find your horse, find where they want you to communicate with you on them.
Thanks, Darren. Katie, how about you?
Everything that I've heard already is pretty great. I think, the big thing I would say is it comes down to the biomechanics of your horse and understanding your animal. Horses are like humans. They're better one direction than the other. They're more flexible one direction than the other. Get to know your horse and his body or her body and how it actually works. And if I put my leg on and pick up a rib, can I keep my rhythm, right? And can I feel when my horse starts to become disconnected, so that when you're out there doing that longer pattern, it's not a surprise that your horse is disconnected. We want, our riders to feel that occurring before it occurs, so that you understand how to make those adjustments. And then, when you're getting to know your horse, if your horse is high strung and gets anxious on the pattern, you need to work slowly through your components and make it dull and boring. If you've got one that's a little dull and needs a little energy, you're going to have to hype it up and get that thing doing it 10 times faster than you want it on the actual pattern. So I don't know that there's an exact answer, I would say, for getting through the pattern work and having it be really successful, but understand your horse's psychology and their biomechanics, and study it, and it should create a good result theoretically.
All right, thanks everyone. Any
Good
other questions
question.
out there?
I'm not seeing any more, but we do have time for another one if anyone wants to pop in.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, a question for all of our panelists. I guess, what is one thing you see at horse shows that you wish you could create a big shift around?
Feel free to answer in the chat as well. And if you have an answer, you can raise your hand as well.
I think we see a lot of drill overkill at the horse show. You know, I'd like to see the show and the fun put back in the show a little bit more. We all get so caught up in the blue ribbon. You know, second place might have only been a half a point behind first place. That's just as important. We seem to put value on our winners when everybody has some value to them. You know, sometimes those score sheets are so close, even as a judge, we're sitting there thinking, who won this class? And we'll have our score sheet in front of us and it all comes out. But I think we need to put emphasis on the whole fun is showing, the whole fun of the game and the love of the horse. And just encourage everyone to have a good time and not be so serious. I mean, my goodness, we're not curing cancer. I mean, it's supposed to be fun for our horse. It's supposed to be fun for the people. It's supposed to be fun for the family. And you see some families stressing out. I mean, you can tell they're not having fun that day, and they just need to take a big breath and realize that the dog that stole the food off their table was Mac's dog, and that's okay. So, just to remember to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
Darren, do you have a response to Katie's question at all?
I see in our industry, we're getting lack of employees, people that want to work in our industry. It becomes difficult as we're trying to run a business and do it correctly. And I think we need to treat people in our industry kinder, that they are an individual, they are a human being and whatnot. I see a lot of in the past at horse shows, a groom and worker was a worker. In my barn, my grooms and my workers are my employees and helpers. They are a part of our team, and I could not do it without them. So when you go to horse shows and there's a groom sitting off to the side that hasn't eaten lunch because the trainer hadn't provided it yet, give them an apple or something. Go up and tell them, hey, thanks. They're standing in line just with everybody else, waiting to go lunch their horses and whatnot. That's the part of the industry that I see that lacking kindness in the helpers at the shows. And I really think that everybody needs to pitch in, and they are there also for the love of it. We're not there to get rich, heaven forbid. So be kind to, everybody's barn mates.
Yep.
Mackenzie, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely putting the fun back into horse shows. And on a smaller scale, our local shows, we're always constantly trying to brainstorm what can we do to bring fun back into it. So, because what I've experienced is it's very intense, the competition, and it takes over and it takes the fun out of it. And know that it's not going to be an instant gratification. There's years that go in to develop a skill. And it takes years for it to pay off. So don't rush the process, because it is one. It takes a long time. But fun, definitely. I would like to see it shift more towards fun, because I know for the adults, it's their hobbies. I know the kids, it's a competition. It's a competition for everybody, but it eventually is just going to be your hobby. So it should be fun. It's back to the I get to go to a horse show. I get to go practice. I get to clean my horse's stall, not I have to.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. It's 5:59 here in Moscow, Idaho. So I think it's a good time to wrap up. I know a couple panelists have some other things they've got to get to, so we do really appreciate your time. You took an hour out of your day to come give us your advice, and we really appreciate it. So if everyone wants to unmute yourselves for a second, we can all do a round of applause and thank these guys for their time. Go ahead and do that now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
That was
you.
really fun.